Let's get into it. point.
Right?
At the police station, yeah, I shed a tear, and I haven't cried in years over my mom, but I did shed a tear at the police station. But I'm more happy that I have closure, and, I'm talking to the sisters and stuff like that. She was missing for all this time, so we kind of grew apart, but now with the closure, we're coming back together.
Sandra's family planned to have her cremated and have her ashes made into jewelry for her sisters. The Utah Medical Examiner's Office could not confirm a cause of death for Sandra, but detectives believe her husband knew more about her death than anyone else, though there was never probable cause to charge him in connection with her disappearance or murder while he was alive. Her son said that their family had long suspected Warren's involvement in Sandra's disappearance, as there had been a history of domestic abuse in their relationship. Even before the case was closed, the family had assumed he knew what had happened to her. "We knew it was him that killed her and disposed of the body," said Daryl. It is bittersweet to not have justice in this case, but Sandra's family now has some answers to what happened to her so many years ago. Now, I would like to take a minute to talk about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? This last year has been a roller coaster in so many ways, and it is totally normal to work on those emotional twists and turns. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist, and you can start communicating in as little as 48 hours. It is super easy. You take the quick questionnaire and get matched to one of BetterHelp's network of over 20,000 therapists, and they do their best to match you with someone locally. You can also log into your account anytime and message your therapist. In addition to the messaging, you can schedule weekly video sessions or phone sessions so you don't have to sit in a waiting room or commute to an appointment. BetterHelp is committed to helping you find the perfect someone you are comfortable with, and it is free and easy to change therapists if necessary. BetterHelp is more affordable than traditional in-office therapy, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. BetterHelp is not a crisis line, it isn't self-help, it is a way to get professional therapy done securely online. Check out my link, betterhelp.com/TCM, and use my code TCM to get 10% off your first month and get started today. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of experienced professionals. Thank you again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Number 2. Sonia Carmen Herok Stone. It was October 15, 1981, when 30-year-old Sonia Carmen was alone at her Monterey County, California home while her 4-year-old daughter was at school. The Quebec native was a single mother and worked as a merchandiser for the Levi Strauss & Company, more commonly known today as Levi's. Around noon, her friend Caroline McBride stopped by only to find a horrible scene. Sonia, partially clothed and lying dead on her living room floor. The Monterey County Sheriff's Office arrived at Sonia's home in Rio Avenue soon after and began their investigation. Sonia had a pair of pantyhose around her throat, which detectives determined that had been used to strangle her to death. The next day, detectives spoke with Sonia's 25-year-old neighbor, Michael Scott Glazebrook, who lived across the street from her. After noting a fresh scratch on his face, they immediately identified him as a suspect and brought him in for a police interview, during which he appeared to be nervous. A friend of Glazebrook told them that he had admitted to being in Sonia's home the morning that she was killed. The police arrested Glazebrook on December 18, 1981, and charged him with the murder of Sonia. But during Glazebrook's preliminary hearings, many conflicting reports and issues arose. There were conflicting reports about whether or not Sonia had been sexually assaulted. Some of Glazebrook's own statements had to be thrown out, and the friend who had testified that Glazebrook admitted to being in Sonia's home recanted their first statements. In August of 1983, Glazebrook's second preliminary hearing was held, during which even more evidence against him was thrown out of court. Glazebrook was questioned about the murder after being taken into custody over traffic warrants, but the investigators prevented him from making bail on the traffic warrants and didn't allow him to make a telephone call, and they also didn't inform his wife of his arrest. Glazebrook's trial was held in November of 1983, where witnesses came forward in his defense. One witness stated that Glazebrook's truck was gone from his home at the time of the murder, and another one gave him an alibi. Some witnesses even testified that the reports made by the detectives conflicted with what they had said to them in their own statements. Glazebrook's attorney defended his client, saying that he could have gotten the scratch on his face from playing softball on the afternoon of the murder, and Glazebrook's parents said that they were with him most of the afternoon of the murder and denied that he had a scratch on his face at all. With a mountain of conflicting statements before them, the jury couldn't agree on Glazebrook's innocence or guilt. 9 jurors voted to acquit him, and 3 determined he was guilty. In the end, the trial resulted in a hung jury. The district attorney's office decided not to retry the case, and the murder charges against Glazebrook were dismissed. William Curtis, the district attorney for Monterey County at the time, said he didn't feel he could successfully prosecute Glazebrook with the evidence available at the time. The evidence included blood that was found under one of Sonia's fingernails, but the lab technicians at the time couldn't confirm who the blood belonged to, only that it wasn't Sonia's. In late 2020, detectives at the Monterey County Sheriff's Office and Deputy District Attorney Matt Leroux re-examined the case. They discovered there were several pieces of evidence that could be re-examined with the newer DNA technology that wasn't available during the initial investigation. So they sent it to the Department of Justice DNA lab to be tested. They also obtained a search warrant to obtain a DNA sample from Glazebrook, who was still living and working in Monterey County. It was indeed a match for the evidence found at the crime scene. On August 14, 2021, Glazebrook was arrested during a traffic stop in Seaside, where he worked as a school bus driver. Police say the 65-year-old didn't seem surprised when he was arrested. During the operation to arrest Glazebrook, all of the detectives involved wore Levi's in honor of Sonia. Glazebrook was charged with first-degree murder and booked into the Monterey County Jail with his bail set at $1 million. He was arraigned on August 14, 2021, pleaded not guilty to the charges, and had his preliminary hearing on September 1, 2021. Number 3. Darlene Krashoc. By March of 1987, 20-year-old Darlene Krashoc already had a few years of U.S. Army experience under her belt. She had enlisted right after graduating high school and was stationed at Fort Carlson in Colorado, working as a mechanic. She was just 5 months shy of turning 21 and had plans to re-enlist and attend the Army Airborne School. But on March 17th, her dreams were cut short. At 5:20 a.m., 2 Colorado Springs Police Department officers were patrolling an area 6 miles from Fort Carson when they found Darlene's body behind the Korean Club restaurant. Darlene had last been seen the night prior with fellow members of her Army unit. They had gone to a club called Shuffles, and Darlene was last seen leaving there with an unidentified man between midnight and 1 a.m. Investigators listed her cause of death as strangulation and determined that she had also been sexually assaulted. They believed Darlene was murdered at a different location before the killer moved her body. Special agents from the United States Army Criminal Investigation Command immediately began working with the Colorado Springs Police Department to solve the case. But even after collecting evidence from the crime scene and conducting hundreds of interviews, the case went cold. 16 years passed with no leads on Darlene's murder. But during that time, one thing that did progress was DNA testing and forensic technology. In October of 2003, Darlene's case was reopened to use this new technology to examine the crime scene evidence. The Colorado Springs Police Department released all of their evidence to the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Laboratory's examiners, who processed it using phenotype technology and put out a $10,000 reward for information on the case. Still, they had no suspect. Over 10 years later, in September of 2014, forensic science officer Jessica Veltri was assigned to the case. As a recent grad of the George Washington University Forensic Science program, Veltri was very interested in cold cases and was eager to put her forensic knowledge to use. In 2016, Veltri submitted 27 pieces of evidence to the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Laboratory in Georgia for DNA forensic testing that was not available prior, and they reanalyzed all of the previously submitted items. In December of that year, the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command enlisted the help of Parabon Nanolabs, who specializes in DNA phenotyping. Their phenotyping can predict a person's physical appearance and ancestry based on unidentified DNA evidence. By January 2017, they had established a trait prediction of Darlene's murderer, Based on this prediction, they created a composite image of the suspect at 20 to 25 years old and then at 50 to 50 years old. But this still wasn't enough to find Darlene's murderer. In 2019, the forensic scientists at Parabon turned to the ancestry and genealogy websites 23andMe and Ancestry.com to help find distant relatives to the DNA sample found at the crime scene so they could reverse engineer a family tree. They found people in Wisconsin and Texas who had similar DNA to the sample and were able to trace their genealogy to one distant cousin, Michael White. They compared the name against military records and found out that White was a retired first-class sergeant stationed at Fort Carson at the time of Darlene's murder. The Colorado Springs Police Department then ran a surveillance operation on White, who still lived in the area where the murder had occurred. They followed him to a fast food restaurant, and after White threw out his garbage, they collected the cup he drank from. The DNA from the cup was a positive match for the DNA found at the crime scene. On June 13, 2019, 58-year-old Michael White was arrested at his home. White maintained his innocence and entered a not guilty plea. After less than 2 weeks of trial and less than 1 day of deliberation, the El Paso County jury found White guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The verdict was a relief for Darlene's family after a long 34 years.
We'll always miss her.
Yes.
We'll always remember, but I think it will be easier to go on now from day to day knowing that her justice has been done.
Well, that is it for this video. As always, please give this video a thumbs up if you like the content and subscribe for more if you haven't already. If you've done all that and want to support me and the channel, we have channel membership as well as Patreon to get early access, members only content, and so much more. We also have merch and other goodies in the description box, as well as links to all my socials. And again, thank you BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. But until then, I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.